Hey, this is Tyler, TJack Survival and Survival Dispatch. We're going to talk to you about the military IFAK, individual first aid kit, and the BearFAK, which is created by Refuge Medical. Okay, stick with me. All right, I'm here with Phelps, and he's going to show us some of the components of the BearFAK, and I'm going to talk about the stuff that I've seen in Afghanistan. I was there 08, 16, 17 as a soldier with 3rd Group and as a civilian contractor. So we'll just go over the differences between a military IFAK and the Bear civilian IFAK, kind of tell you the differences, the reasons why behind that. You're going to see that there's a lot of similarities. And then as we're doing this, if you have any things that you see that you think is interesting or you notice differences, leave comments below and we'll see where this goes.
You think it's simple, but an IFAK needs to be able to attach to something, right?
Yes.
So initially we're talking about a durable pouch that typically has MOLLE attachments, right?
I remember the very first one I got issued.
Yeah.
No joke, it was a leg pouch. I was like, this is so ridiculously stupid. The first thing we did is we took it off that, tossed the leg pouch, stuck it. Most of us ended up wearing it right here in the body armor. You want to hit it with both hands, because if this one's jacked up, you use this one and vice versa.
Yep.
And when you need it right now.
Yep.
Gotta have it fast.
Yep. So this is just attached to the bag that I carry around with me. I have the shears, easiest to access, because like we mentioned before, this is, when you need shears, you need them right then, right?
Because you're trying to get clothing out of road rashes, and clothes can melt to you, and there's so many different things, that so many different bad mechanisms of injury. You got to clear that stuff out of the road to see what's bleeding, where it's at, and make sure you're not missing something.
That's
otherwise
the biggest point, is to see what you're working with, right? Because you have to know what the injury is, and clothing hides so much. You know, it can hide bleeding, and it can hide
especially if it's
injury.
mangled clothing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so from there, inside the durable pouch, we have an insert, and it has a high-vis handle in order to pull that out, right? So you pull this out, and you want something right on top, like quick lock, combat gauze,
Blood stoppers for quick access,
stoppers,
right?
right? Because according to the Marsh algorithm, priority of care, massive bleeding will kill you the fastest, but we can do the most for it, right? So right after that is the tourniquet, right? So we have a tourniquet right there.
And when I was in Afghanistan, we would put one right on top. So you'd also have multiple. Don't think you just need one.
Agreed. Agreed. So this is honestly my backup tourniquet. I have easy to access tourniquets on other places, such as my pocket.
Boom.
When I'm running more line gear type items, like I'll have it on my pistol belt. I have one on my pistol belt. And then if I'm up to a plate carrier, I have another one on my plate carrier, right? And they're accessible from both sides like you were talking about. So, cat tourniquet, you want to make sure that it's staged properly so that you can easily open and deploy this, because again, you may have to be having to do it one-handed.
And nothing sucks worse than having a bunch of blood all over something and trying to feed it through there. Even sweat, even snow, gravel, mud. Like, it's not happening.
Working with gloves if you're in a cold weather environment, or just, wearing tactical gloves, or heightened stress, you lose dexterity. So
You end up,
having a nice, easy, ugly to grab, easy to grab handle there.
I like easy and ugly to grab. We're gonna go with that.
Yeah, easy and ugly to grab. So from there you have ETD, and this is kind of the completion of the massive bleeding section, right? So
tell them what this is. I know what we're looking at, but I'm sure someone's gonna go, what is that?
it is a trauma dressing, emergency trauma dressing. So some people hear them referred to as Israeli bandages, because they kind of pioneered that. It is essentially a patch of gauze that's pre-made onto an ACE bandage with intermittent Velcro along that ACE bandage, so that if you drop it, it doesn't all unroll and just run away from you. And some sort of Velcro or something to attach it.
So you can slam it in a hole and put pressure quick.
Exactly.
Yep.
You can either pack a wound and apply this over it, if you have like a gunshot or something that's created a deeper wound channel, or for a surface level laceration or an abrasion or something like that, you can just apply this as direct pressure in order to help stop that bleeding.
And I want to note, maybe not a lot of you have noticed this, but there's a chronological order purposefully as far as what's accessed first,
Right.
and then what is accessed later.
So those items came out of the 2 easiest to access areas right there.
We started with the scissors because you got to figure out what you're looking for, and then the hole fillers, right? And then we're getting to a little more advanced related stuff now.
So, again, March algorithm, priority of care, right? So is your airway is next. And so that is going to be mostly only dealt with chest seals. From neck to navel, there's not much else you can do. You can't pack that wound. You can't apply pressure. You can't tourniquet it. So chest seals, bullets have a tendency to go through things, not in them. So you need more than one, right? And I think that's really where this has first started to veer off.
My first military kit only had one. I raided other kits and added extra gloves. I added allergy medicine. I added Band-Aids. I added rubber bands. I added a marker. I added a lot of random stuff that didn't come with it that we had to kind of figure out the hard way. And the sucking chest wound, chest seal patches were one of those things. I remember way back in the day when we were just taught to use MRE patches.
Yes.
Just take an MRE and some tape and stick it on there.
Yep, take it on.
And then they started coming out with the square ones, and then they started getting more advanced with like triangle and hexagon ones with multiple vents and stuff. The point is we've come a long way, and now we're realizing, hey, if you got one, you probably need two or more.
That being said, the current general issue IFAK for the military, my cousin just deployed, still only came with one chest seal, which makes
that's no good.
no sense. So 2 chest seals, and that will reestablish continuity in the chest cavity, right? So you want to seal that up.
Seals it so the vacuum can reinflate the lungs.
A lot of people, I think, believe that the lungs are a muscle that they flex, and that's not the way it works.
They're like limp balloons. Yep.
Exactly, and you have a diaphragm that when it flexes and pulls down, it draws air in through the path of least resistance, which is typically your nose and mouth, to fill those lungs. If there's another hole, then that becomes the path of least resistance, and then you're not getting oxygen in. Along the same lines of oxygen, if you have obstruction of your...
You're riding a motorcycle and you land face first.
Yeah, airway. So
you're landing in a parachute and your face hits the ground.
Exactly.
Driving a Humvee MRAP car, smash your face into a steering wheel.
Walk down the wrong alley and get hit with some opiates, and you'll be out.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not a frequent drug user, it takes just one little speck and you'll be out. So having a way to reestablish that patent airway is important. There's also people hear about swallowing your tongue. You can't actually swallow your tongue. All it is that you reach a relaxed state that muscle of your tongue
just falls
and then gets wedged in your airway.
So the way that works, and I'll talk about this real quick too, is we would pre-stage ours because everybody has a different size. We'd measure from ear to nose and just get the right size and cut it. And then there's lubrication that we use as well, which she has right here. But that's something you want a little bit of training with this. Don't just throw it in your kit and think you know what's going on.
Absolutely.
You get one that's too short or too long, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a little hit on that is never use a petroleum-based lubricant to insert this in, because it will create an inflammatory response in your sinuses, which is the opposite.
Swell it shut.
Yeah. Yep. Counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So then the next easiest to access is 2 large pieces of gauze, because when you need large gauze, you need it quickly.
A lot of it.
Right?
Yeah.
If you need small gauze, you have time to take large gauze and cut it up into small gauze. But if you need large gauze, you need it quickly. So that's right there, easy to access. Tape, and it's a little tearaway type Velcro thing. That way you're not having to like fumble.
It's also nice because it works kind of like a toilet paper roll sometimes if you're just trying to pull pieces out.
Absolutely, yep. And then an add-on to this was the decompression needle. So every BearFAK doesn't come with that. Technically,
there's some legalities with. I'll talk about the soldier version of that too. So if you've got one lung that has a hole in the chest cavity, so the lung is collapsed. So when you try to breathe in, it just sucks air into here instead of into the lung, filling it. You have to have a way to balance that. And you'll see the train shift to one side, and you can create an excess of pressure on the other side. And he's talking about a needle right now that is placed and deflates that side so that this can seal. It's dusty. Woo. So this can seal, and then you can breathe again. that's an advanced technique, and this can be paraphernalia in the wrong states, or
Yes.
we have them for soldiers, but I can't use them on the civilian.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for civilian use, you really have to have funny letters after your name in order to use them. But that's more of a liability issue. If it were my loved one,
I'm sticking them.
I'm still doing it. I'm not worried about them suing me.
Yeah.
You know. And so
Some
it'll
junkie on the
help.
street,
Yeah.
shouldn't have got shot.
If you don't have a hole in your chest cavity, but you have a punctured lung, it'll cause that imbalance, and this creates the hole to allow it to balance out, right?
Correct.
And so, you know, and people don't realize how easy that is to happen. A lot of car accidents, people eat the steering wheel, and the rib will break and puncture a lung.
My grandfather died from a rib being busted and puncturing a lung and a heart because a caterpillar rolled on him. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yep. And then we've got a marker and some duct tape, because if you can't duct it.
Yeah, you can't fix it with duct tape and WD-4, it wasn't broken.
Exactly. So those are, you know, you may need to document what time you put a tourniquet on, or you may need to take notes of
Where you're at.
Where you're at.
Like
yeah.
when you start, if you've ever been in a fight or flight, and I like to add posture or submit situation, you get silly, you get stupid, and you get like this. You feel hyper alert, but then you go to remember something simple like your home address, and there's nothing in that data memory. That's just empty.
Yep.
And when it finally comes to you, I will write stuff in the back of my hands.
Call it my
write
Palm
notes.
Pilot.
Yeah, my Palm Pilot. So having a pen is important and valuable for a multitude of reasons, especially when you're under a lot of stress.
Yep. And then down here, this is not as easy to access, but this is sort of the everything else pouch, right? So
For the kids' pouch.
yes. So you have some simple BZK wipes, for antiseptic, small gauze, you have compressed gauze in case you do need to do something more extensive like wound packing, rolled gauze, again, for smaller injuries, you may just need to wrap it in gauze, keep it away from the nastiness of the outside world. A survival blanket, a lot of people consider these like throwaway items that just get thrown into kits and everything. And they are cheap, but they're not throwaway items, because a lot of people don't realize the whole purpose of any kind of treatment is to create a clot and stop the bleeding, right? At regular temperature with no other factors, it takes roughly 10 minutes with just pressure to create a clot. If the body loses 1 degree of body temp, that doubles to 20 minutes. If it loses another degree, it doubles again to 40 minutes.
So you can bleed to death faster if you get cold.
Absolutely. And so it's much easier to keep a body warm than it is to try to reheat one. Right? And so that's where such a simple, cheap item can come in very handy to wrap them up, keep that body temperature inside.
Perfect. So as far as military versus this, they are very close. As far as issue, this has just a couple more things. And this is basically a military IFAK kit. There's one more vent in it. The only thing we had is a oral pharyngeal in addition to the nasal, but we had tools to use to place them. It's basically some plastic, keeps the tongue off your mouth, so if you're knocked out and you're laying on your back, that thing will hold it down, and you put an oxygen mask on to help them breathe. And then I added ibuprofen, Ranger candy, right? I got little kids' knee bandages because there's always some big cut you got on your hand or some sort that you deal with. And then for children, you might want actual bandages, Benadryl, ibuprofen, some of that kind of stuff. Maybe you've got a personal need. I like to use diabetes because you'll need insulin as a backup, or sugar. Spare can of Mountain Dew never hurt anyone, right? So those are the things that are different and that are the same. This could be used in Afghanistan as the same kit, and I would say it's better because of the double vent, and it's just missing the oral piece, which could be added in 30 seconds. So. But yeah, it's definitely a rock solid kit and something that I would use on a civilian. The cool thing about medical kits, and we talked about this earlier, is the same cool thing about survival kits. Get one that works, add what you need it, take out what you don't. Just get a solid base. This is a rock solid base that you could use as is, or if you do have a personal need like insulin, you could add to it. Or if I don't think I would take anything away from what's here though. I think that's kind of a base level perfect setup.
So I know a lot of people do the same thing. Refuge Medical has a variety of different options. We kind of play around with different combinations of components, and so there's other options for kids as well. And like to what you were saying, what we were talking about, get something that will most closely fit what you need, because everyone's situation is different.
Yeah, you might have.
I don't have kids. You know,
Yeah.
you do. Like, that's something to take into consideration.
You gotta have Band-Aids for kids. I have a friend that has a special needs son, and he asked me specifically, how would I bug out on foot with my son? And I had to think about that. I had to think really hard about that. And the solution for me is there's a game trailer that you can wear on your waist with the one wheel on it. It's for carrying out deer, but someone can sit in that thing just
Absolutely.
fine.
Yep.
And there's always something that you can add to or take from to fix the situation. When I was a young soldier, I was a forward observer, and we used to go we would go for 3 or 4 days or a week in the backcountry, and my NCO would always have me write on a notepad, this is what I used, this is what I wanted, and this is what I didn't use. We would get back. If I didn't use it, I don't care how logical I thought it was, it'd come out of the bag. If I wanted it, I added it. And we really whittled it down to the bare essentials of what you really need versus what you think you need. And weight is horrible.
Absolutely.
Like once you've done some crazy amounts of weight, figure out what you need and take it, figure out what you don't need and get rid of it.
Yeah, ounces make pounds, pounds make pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully that's valuable to you. You got questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll leave a link to Refuge Metal, that's my new garage.
Oh,
band. Refuge Medical. I will leave that down below, and thank you for watching.